using these tools, it would have picked it up because it would have been an anomaly.
Right.
And for David, do you know what that means? Do I need to check?
I have Google. I know what anything means.
You're listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, where HIPAA and humor collide to make learning fun. Your delightful hosts are Donna Grindle and David Sims. Relax. HIPAA help is on the way.
Welcome to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast. My name is David Sims of Help Me with HIPAA. And this is Donna Grindle of Help Me with HIPAA. Oh, boy. So for those of you who don't know, I am actually with HIPAA for MSPs and Donna's with Card and Compliance. And if you are new to this podcast, because we have new people all the time, you are in for a treat because we definitely cut up a lot. Matter of fact, we got a recent review, and it's funny because when we go through all of our iTunes reviews, nearly all of them talk about how entertaining it was and fun to listen to. So we have to keep on that. Make sure we keep it fun, entertaining. That's kind of my job with my unique skill set. So what have you been doing, Donna, since we last talked last week on the podcast?
I've got people now are concerned about this stuff. We've been trying to get people to talk to us since 2012. And we joke about we'd be at the expos and stuff, and people would swing wide out around to keep from having to talk to us. We'd have chocolate and everything. Nope, not going to talk about it. But we were patient and we stayed with it, and now it's good. There's a lot of activity and a lot of work to do. So sometimes you're like a hamster on a wheel always. But I said earlier this week, I felt like I was a hamster on a wheel that was on fire. So
that's interesting.
And you? Are you good, David?
Yeah. I mean, it's summertime. It's like the entire world just gets disrupted during the summer months around here.
It's because the children don't have structure during the summer.
Well, it's not even that. Or not just that. It's, even clients. You're talking to a client about doing something, and they're like, oh yeah, but we're going to be out of town on vacation. Okay, what about 3 weeks from now? Oh, we're going to be out of town on vacation.
That's right.
Or, it's like everybody goes on vacations and everybody's got kids out of school. And so it's a crazy time juggling everything. And then, on top of all that, I have more than one thing I'm juggling anyway. So that all of it just is crazy.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Well, that kind of goes with our plan for the podcast today, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. We're going to do something a little different because we like mixing it up. So today we decided we would do one of those podcasts that's kind of, how when you go into the pantry and you don't really have anything to fix, so you just grab a whole bunch of stuff and throw it in the pot. Call everybody down for dinner. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to throw a little bit of everything. It's going to be good. It's going to taste great. But it might look terrible, but it's going to taste great. But we have, it's funny because actually as we record this today, you're kind of going to get an insight of what we kind of go through before we record, because we have all these ideas floating around and we have all these topics. And so today we was like, what, why don't we just make it a show that's kind of like an open mic? So we're going to talk about several different things and kind of jump around, and it's not going to be really specifically focused on one topic like we normally do. And so we're just going to kind of give that a try. And since everything else is mixed up with the summer and everything going on, we're just going to throw this out there.
We're mixed up too. I was busy. I didn't have time to nail down show notes, and I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but if I don't have them, I have no chance of keeping my co-host in any kind of direction. So we at least have a few topics to discuss and some news items. So we'll see how it goes. So here goes.
Probably what would be more interesting is talking about the things that we decide not to talk about.
No.
But we do that for a reason, to protect the guilty sometimes.
Yeah. Let's don't tell people that happened. Yeah.
So, but there's always good stuff to pull out of the most recent news. And so one of the things that we recently discussed was, keeping your employees out of your PHI and doing that through auditing and tools and all that. And so needless to say, that doesn't always happen.
No.
So which one do you want to hit first? The podiatry one?
Yeah, that one was the big one. And what's ironic is I think we talked about it before. We just did a symposium with our friends at Sphere discussing that insider issues and how much you had to check them out and how the Sphere product did that. Manual audits only look at so many things. You can't check everything, and their product evaluates all logs. So that's what those types of products do, is they take the entire thing. And so the idea is that you get clean alerts, not over alerts. Mm-hmm. So we have that in the end of May, and then right away, around that same time, beginning of June, the second and the third, two big stories come out about people snooping. And if you were actually able to look at this stuff using these tools, it would have picked it up because it would have been an anomaly.
Right.
And for David, do you know what that means? Do I need to check?
I have Google. I know what anything means.
If you can spell it closely, right?
Yep, I can.
So anyway, the first one we were going to talk about is as an announcement, June the 2nd, so it's really new. Stanford Podiatry Group, PC, discovered that an unauthorized third party gained access to their computer systems for almost 2 months. 2 months earlier this year. And they were able apparently to just roam around, do whatever they wanted to do. They accessed the EMR. So every single patient in their records, in their EMR, has to be notified. So that's 40,491.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So imagine if you have a huge organization and this kind of thing happens. Within 24, 48 hours of it, the first access, these other tools should find it and alert you, and that's what Sphere would do. And so they got everything, everything. They first got in February 22nd, and they discovered it April 14th.
I wish sometimes they went into a little more detail about these things.
Well, there's a part, that goes back to us saying, if I gave you all the details, am I telling you, everything that went wrong with me? And I'm sure we can find more details somewhere.
Yeah. And it's not details like, let me find a way to, bash this company for not doing what they should do. It's more of, let's see what went wrong so we can try not to allow that to happen to other people.
Yeah, but it's here's how people can get in is what it is. It's telling the bad guys, here's a way, try this. It seems to work.
Well, it says in the article near the bottom of the article we're looking at that, it was a cyber attack. But I guess what I'm wondering is what type of cyber attack. I don't have to get specific about, what failures were done or whatever, but was it a phishing attempt? Was it somebody that hacked in? Was it previous IT provider that was going in and poking around, which we know we've seen that happen too.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't give a lot of information about that, but it still circles back around to the whole point of making sure that people aren't snooping.
Well, and somebody's snooping around. It shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. And more than likely, if they got into the EMR and it's like everybody says, oh, well, I don't access the EMR. Well, clearly all you have to do is, worm your way around the network. And that's why we say IT companies are, whether they access the EMR or not, is irrelevant, because clearly if you can get in there, you can find your way in.
Oh, yeah.
And all of these, well, that was another ramble we went on where a lawyer wrote an article saying that IT companies, if all they were doing was maintaining and managing malware tools, then they were not a business associate. And, okay, first of all.
Yeah, he doesn't understand technology then.
No, because, I mean, we know that if we had that level of control over those computers, if we're doing that, then we could be putting our own malware on there.
Exactly.
You know? So you have to give us a complete level of control to manage those things. And I'm just sorry. We have specific, quotes from the omnibus rule and from OCR guidance that tells us those things specifically. And we know from a technical standpoint, if you have control of the network, and if the whole idea of HIPAA is to prevent people from roaming around a network that could access PHI, and then I'm going to have complete control of it where it's all flying around, how does that even remotely mean I couldn't be a major open gap? So there you have it.
Yeah, and that leads to, I think, the most common snooping, in my opinion. Tell me if I'm wrong. You would. But the most common one would be from employees, and that's what happened on June 3rd that you talked about, and that's where some employees from ProMedica, 7 employees, decided that even though they had access to PHI and had access to patient files, they did not have access or was not supposed to be looking at these particular patient files.
Right. They had no business reason.
No reason to be in there poking around. Mind your business.
We're not required to treat, nor was there any legitimate business reason. So they just wanted to get up in somebody's business.
So they viewed their information, clinical data, and all that good stuff. It doesn't say, obviously, who the person was they were doing that, but I wonder if it was somebody for 7 employees. Of course, it doesn't say 7 employees looked at one particular person, but it's just interesting that caught 7 employees at one time, and it makes you wonder. We see things like that happen when, a football player or some famous person pops up in the hospital. We typically see within a week, you almost always see so-and-so employees fired for accessing information they shouldn't have. I mean, it's almost laughable because I'm telling you, if you saw a famous person go into the hospital, if you dig enough, you'll see some related story within the next 4 weeks after that where somebody got fired at the hospital for poking in their records. It's crazy.
Ridiculous. And people just can't control themselves.
I gotta know.
It's like that story of the lady who had already been warned about snooping, and then they catch her, within 6 months of the last warning doing it again. And they call her in, and she said, well, I know you're going to have to fire me, but I just had to know whether she was sick or not. The hell? People just, they can't control themselves clearly. I don't think everybody's that way, but curiosity killed the cat.
Yeah. Oh man, it's crazy. So, that's kind of the first thing that you need to think about. How are you going to protect the data? The data, we talk about all these different ways to keep people from the outside coming in, but a lot of times it's your problems with the inside. It's the people you hired, the people you trust, the people you gave access to that data. You still have to monitor those people and monitor what they're doing because for some reason, people just got to know.
Got to know. Well, that's the thing. Well, there you go. That's a topic we could have used for today's podcast. The new Poneman study came out. And one of the things that it showed is that I thought was interesting is, everybody knows you got to worry about individuals. And it's individuals are high up there in every rating, no matter how you were looking at it, as being the problem. But they're also the solution because employees are the ones detecting breaches. So
you got that from me. I said that long before that study came out.
Oh, But employee vigilance, so you've got the ones that are going to snoop, but you also have the ones that are actually paying attention. So you got to give them, kudos for the good ones there who have gotten on board the culture of compliance.
Maybe you should find the employees that like to snoop and put them in charge of checking the audit logs since they like digging into stuff so much.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
You ever thought about that? Pretty good.
That would be like being put in the dungeon or something for punishment. But I did think it was interesting that ProMedica, at the end of the article, that they had decided it had prompted them to conduct regular audits of data access logs. Software tools have been implemented to flag inappropriate access of EMR records. All employees granted access to EMR are to receive additional training.
There's that T word again.
Yeah, so training, there it goes. And that they were able to find 7. It's not like they found 1. And you're right, it wasn't like there was a gang of snoopers. It's a snooping gang. They get together and they have a contest to see how many different patients they can get stuff. It's like a treasure hunt. Oh, no. Don't take that as an idea, people.
Yeah.
That's not an idea.
Well,
Although,
it can start as one person saying, "Hey, did you see so and so? Can you have you you should really take a look at their record. That you wouldn't believe what you'd see."
Yeah.
And that's it. Once you plant that seed, God, people can't help themselves.
Yeah. Hey, y'all, look at this. Watch this.
Famous last words.
Oh, I know. It usually comes right before at least a hospital visit.
Yeah.
If not worse.
So let's talk about cloud stuff. Let's get our head in the clouds and talk about the fact that people sometimes are terrified to death of cloud things, and then other people probably aren't terrified enough. I like cloud stuff, cloud software, cloud functionality. It lends to a level of convenience that nothing else can. And, years ago, they started coming out with cloud-based EHRs, and the adoption was kind of slow. Can you imagine? Mm-hmm. Telling people, we're going to take your data away from you, and we're going to put it in the mystical cloud.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What is a cloud? I think now people finally understand to some extent what the cloud is, but just the thought of, there's still plenty of people. The thought of moving their data outside of their little server in their controlled space is just overwhelming.
Yeah. I remember it's been a long time ago, but I recall when the quote-unquote cloud was getting a lot of popularity, somebody had asked me, they said, well, don't you think me putting my data, and this wasn't medical data, but they said, don't you think me putting my data in the cloud is not secure? And I said, well, having a cloud company trying to protect your data is a whole lot more than what you're doing.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people in almost every case. Now, not all cases, but in almost every case, everything else about your data will be more protected than it is right now wherever you have it in your room. The only thing that would be, is the controls in place. You have to properly secure the controls in the cloud, but you should be doing that locally anyway. And properly select, but you should be doing that locally anyway. So,
right.
And that's like the announcement this week of a Twitter breach that happened a while back, because we've talked about this before. When there's a breach and they give you a year's worth of credit monitoring,
mm-hmm.
Well, the criminals know that, so they just hold on to everything for a year.
Right.
They're like, oh, okay, we're in no hurry.
Yeah.
They just consider that stockpile. So Twitter passwords were released. And so apparently they did, of course, run through to see what the most used passwords were. And did you see it? Did you know what the number one password was for Twitter accounts?
Let me guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or something like that.
Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see. How many times have we talked about password management?
Well, more than once.
You know, a tool like Dashlane or LastPass is just, it really is the solution to that problem. And, our method to learn a complicated password for it, and of course, 2FA.
Mm-hmm.
But you can secure the cloud from all of those things. But this particular thing, the news story, I did all of the things I was supposed to do to secure the cloud. But this I can't control. I have to admit this. I could not have prevented this with any security measures or any knowledge whatsoever about the application. So you go ahead and tell the story.
I'll go ahead and tell the story. Well, from what I know of it, most people are familiar with, the cloud software, Practice Fusion. And I know I've dealt with it several times. I think it was one, either is or was free. So it got a lot of publicity because, you don't want to go out there and spend tens of thousands of dollars taking on EHR software. So this Practice Fusion came out, and there's a lot of people who jumped on board with it. And it says that in 2012, Practice Fusion sent emails to consumers asking them to write reviews of their healthcare providers in order to populate its healthcare provider directory with data ahead of their planned 2013 launch. And so the patient names and email addresses were taken from the company's EHR service, and the emails were sent to patients asking them to review their physicians. So patients were told that reviews would, quote unquote, help improve the service in the future. And the emails appeared to have been sent by the patient's healthcare providers.
Yeah, so you get an email that looks like it came from your doctor asking you to review your interaction with the doctor and how everything's working, right? Is that what we're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, of course, looking like it's coming from the actual doctor's office, patients were more than happy to volunteer a lot of information.
Well, and they had no idea this was going to be published publicly.
Publicly, right. So
they thought they were actually carrying on a conversation with their doctor.
Yeah. So that went well. In the complaint, they said that Practice Fusion deceived consumers about the privacy of the information that these people and patients were submitting via this form. And, patients were required to give authorization for the data to be used by Practice Fusion. But, as I do, people don't read everything. They were only required to click on a, box that says they accept the terms and conditions, and they're not actually required to read the terms and conditions. Which we see that all the time. Yeah. I do it. Everybody does it. Yeah, you got 40 pages of terms and conditions. You scroll to the bottom and you say, "Sure, I'll take it. Whatever. You can have my firstborn."
There's a horrible South Park episode about not reading the terms and conditions. I'm not even going to go into it. If you like South Park, you should check it out. If you, it's disgusting. We'll go on.
Is there a South Park episode that's not?
No, this was one of the worst though to me anyway. But you have to see it. You should check it out, David. You and the boys can watch it and have a good time. But
that's okay. No, thank you anyway.
It's funny, but it's disgusting. So
that's like you. Oh boy,
thank you. But when you look at this case, one of the things that's important to note is it's the FTC that's settling with the vendor. It's not OCR. It's not HHS at all. And they're saying that, they put like their name and the contact, your basic stuff, but they were given a little box that was a text box that they could put things in. And people put in like stuff about their medical conditions their prescriptions and all of that, because they think it's going back to their doctor. And so deceptive practices, boom.
Yeah.
They have been prohibited from displaying any reviews it collected. Yeah, I bet you have. Let's get rid of those. But I don't know if they are paying any fine or anything. But it's one of those things. How do you protect yourself from that? Well, clearly it was this company that did it, not the providers. But the providers' patients have to come to them, and we've talked about it before. It doesn't matter who the breach actually is, who's responsible for it. It's the providers. At least their reputation is at stake, even when they had nothing to do with the breach.
Right.
So that's just never good. Anyhow,
so that rolls us over to.
But we do need to say, we love the cloud. We are big proponents of it.
We stay in it a lot.
Yeah. We think that's an outlier, and it happened in the early ideas of how to use this information that they were collecting. And Practice Fusion it started out as like the big free one. So they were trying to figure out how to make money.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but if you really think about it, this is not a breach of data in that their systems were compromised, or, I mean, this even happened before they actually launched the product. So it was really more of around somebody in the marketing side made a mistake.
Yeah, that's true. But again, here you got somebody that knows nothing about the scenario coming up with this, and no checks and balances in place. So It gets back to make sure that you're getting the information from somebody who understands the topic.
Yeah. Well, that's, just kind of give you a local example. I had a company call me not long ago, and they said, we want to give all of our patient names, addresses, and email to a marketing company. And I said, do you have a business associate agreement with them? And they were like, no. I was like, no, you can't do that. You can't. You can have the patient opt in for it, or you can have the patient sign a form that says that you're able to do that. But as far as just carte blanche, I'm just going to give you all my names and addresses so you can market to my patients. No, you can't do that.
There's a certain amount of marketing you can do, and there's a certain amount of fundraising and other options, and it's very specific stuff that you're able to do. But if you've got a company like a mailing company, and you're going to send them a whole list of patients to send a letter to saying that you're moving, what do you think is going to happen? I now know name, address, and what physician they see.
Not only that, but people are awful about selling information.
Yeah.
I mean, gosh, one of my sons, he's 16, so he's applying for jobs, and he's applying for jobs at the company's website. It's not like he's going through these online job companies. He's doing it from the company's website. And before the end of the day, recruiters are calling, trying to get, him to buy into whatever they're trying to sell. I'm like,
really?
Yes.
So clearly it's being sold instantly.
Yes. And it's not like sold from some big clearinghouse. This is directly from the company he's applying to. People are selling stuff all the time. Your information is crazy.
Yeah. So it is something to ask, and to pay attention to, and not just when you're using a cloud app, but again, everybody just blows right by those terms and conditions. I actually had a tool at one time that it would take it and scan it and look for anything that was odd. You have to copy and paste it in there. But so rarely did it find something that was really outside the realm, I got out of the habit of using it. But I do try to go through looking for anything that looks weird. But it's buried in legal mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
So anyhow, what do you want to talk about now?
Let's end up on something that I like.
That we're all about.
We're all about. So let's end up on talking about the OCR warning of security vulnerabilities in third-party software applications. This came out June the 9th. So, which is yesterday. Came out yesterday. See, we are on top of it. Came out yesterday.
Well, that article did, but it was this week that they made the announcement.
Yeah. So the thing that's interesting about this from an IT perspective is that everything you use on your computer other than the operating system is third-party applications. And so you have to make sure those are patched. But more specifically, what the OCR is citing is that they've done some research and they found that only 1 in 5 companies are performing verification on third-party software and applications, and they're not being patched even though the patches are out there. And of course, a lot of these zero-day vulnerabilities and software that's coming out, and that's where a lot of these problems are coming from so fast in the malware world. People they're not patching their software, and you can have something like the Adobe Acrobat or Flash or whatever. There could be a vulnerability in it, and they can create a patch for it. But if people are not patching, then that vulnerability sits out there and it's just wide open for somebody to use and get into your systems.
And as soon as one is like really publicly aware, and well, even before that, I mean, they're sharing information on that dark web in the secret area, and they're out there scanning, looking for servers and devices with this problem. So they'll update those little botnets that we keep telling people. You think, oh, let them in. How many times have you heard somebody say that? I don't have anything.
Yeah.
Just let them in. Just let them in. You know what? That means you're becoming a tool to attack me. I got some. So now you're just part of an army after me. I'm going to have to take you down. So unbeknownst to most people, there really are a lot of security things that happen every day. Every day.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
We've talked about this many times. I mean, we've talked about how ransomware gets in, and we've talked about malware. We've even talked about website security. That's exactly what OCR is trying to talk about here. When they say that 1 in 5 companies, 1 in 5, have performed that verification and checked for it and installed it.
And I honestly think that's high.
Yeah. Well,
I think 1 in 5 is very optimistic.
Well, but how is it that, if you have there's tools that are available that will do this monitoring and patch management for you. These tools exist, and we're big fans. Right.
That's what we do for clients. As a HIPAA compliant managed service provider, that's what we do. Part of what we do. The funny part of it is so underrated when you start talking to clients about, oh yeah, we do patch management. And of course I try to explain that because I don't want it to seem like some word people don't understand, but they go, oh, okay, that's good. I'm like, no, you don't understand. This is probably the number one thing that's going to keep you safe is patch management.
No. And it becomes like do we really need that? Can we take that off?
Yeah, no.
No.
But yeah, we have tools that do that. And, we even have, a network operations center that goes through the patching and whitelist it, which means they test the patches, make sure that they're okay before they send them out, because you and I both know sometimes patches come out and they wreak havoc on your systems.
You get more news when one of them's bad than when they're coming out. They come out so often it's not news. The only time it's news on like tech sites and stuff is when it's found a major flaw and they're trying to get the word out to patch it. But boy, one goes bad and you'll see it's, it's probably like the geeks version of Woodstock. Don't do this. Don't take this. Don't take this drug. Don't take it. It's bad. Yeah.
So we're able to block a lot of that stuff. So if it doesn't get whitelisted, then it doesn't get applied to the system. So that helps a lot, because the last thing I want to do is walk in, especially on a Monday morning, and 90% of my clients are calling with the same problem that some patch is created. Or like the most recent thing is that Microsoft has just decided to start upgrading people to Windows 10 for no reason.
I know. I got the first call about that, and I was like, that can't be. They don't just do it. And then you start looking around, you're like, oh, man.
Yeah, I got multiple calls within a couple of days. And it's like, I walked in this morning, all my systems are on Windows 10. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, that makes the world good, for us. Thank you, Microsoft.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. These tiny little companies, though, that's a big part of it. But even large companies don't maintain these patches. Well, we talked about the Panama Papers in our website security discussion. Mm-hmm. And it was third-party software that was not being patched. Granted, it was a platform that they were using, and, well, there were several things that weren't being patched, let's just say. Several applications that those companies used. And I just went through a very similar discussion this week with a client was asking a question because they wanted to expose some financial data for them to work with for their clients. So this is a financial company. And they had purchased software from a vendor that would do what they wanted to do. And the vendor calls us up and says, well, we want you to put an SSL cert on here so that we can do this and then open it up to the public web. I'm like, whoa. That server is not prepared. We haven't done any kind of risk analysis on it. Hey, did you hear I said risk analysis? And it wasn't even a HIPAA-related thing. You need to do a risk analysis on that particular machine and figure out, because it had all of their major application stuff on it. Everything was on it. Mm-hmm. And swear to you, the application vendor said, I have 30-something clients that do this, and all they do is what I'm telling you to do. It's secure enough. I was like, but you have to worry about X, Y, and Z. And he goes, I'm not a network person, but I'm telling you it works for everybody else. And I'm like, those people don't have me.
Yeah.
Because I am one of those people that understand, and I spend all day, every day, figuring out how people can get in. That's not what you're going to do. So just trusting in whoever's telling you this stuff, if it doesn't sound right, don't do it.
Mm-mm. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
And what is the best way to make sure that your business technology is up to date and taken care of, David?
I would hire a HIPAA-compliant IT provider and make sure they're giving you reports and all this other kind of stuff too. Because there's a fair share in the IT community that they don't they get you as a client and then they kind of halfway service you when you need things, but you need to make sure all those other things are happening because they're not manually patching anything. All this stuff is automated, and there's reports around that. It should show you exactly how many patches it's doing and putting on the machines and all that good stuff. Somebody's got to be looking. We talked about that. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago on a podcast? If nobody's looking,
yeah.
So somebody's got to be looking.
If you're looking, it ain't cooking.
Yeah. So you got to be looking. I don't want to say don't trust your vendors, but just verify. Verify they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. That goes for all of them. I mean, I tell my clients the same thing. Go over my reports. Make sure they're, you see the data you need to see, because if I miss something or somebody in my organization missed something, I want to know about it. You and I have been on things before where, you were in charge of the compliance side and I'm in charge of the IT side. And then there's been times when your company has called my company and said, we see something that needs to be done, that needs to get done. And it may be something that my company missed or just hadn't got to yet or whatever the case might be, but it's not just going, oh, well, I'm sure David's company will get to it, so we're not going to worry about that.
Yeah, no.
You don't do that. You verify. Even though, you're all working toward the same thing, you don't just assume and you don't just trust, you have to verify. And the same thing with the patch management and your IT provider and all that stuff. You gotta verify. Even if you're going to do it yourself and run your own stuff, you better make sure it gets done.
Yeah, somebody looks at it, because it can send out alerts all day long, but if you don't look at them, it really, why do it?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know we have listeners that are, in hospital systems and they don't have outside IT, they have inside IT. So it's the same thing. Make sure those people are doing the patching, make sure they're providing you, if you're the compliance officer or whatever, providing you with the reports and go over them and see what they say. And if you got things that, yes, we patched an Adobe vulnerability that had been out since February and it's June, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And there again, you have to look at what your policies are. What is your policy around patching and your security policies and all that, and make sure whatever they're doing is in line with your policy.
And make sure that your business associates are doing this as well. It's that whole trust but verify mantra that we've been working from.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So
very good.
I think we're done. I think we've rambled enough.
We're done. No rambling here. That was well thought out. All right, so that's our show for today. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, go over to iTunes and give us a review. We much appreciate that. We still have some of those coming in, and we love them. Regardless of what some people ask me to do, I will not stop asking for reviews. That's become a common joke around here. I think some of the listeners have been around a while. They have fun with that. So we appreciate you listening. The reviews are our payment, because this is the absolute best training you'll get for the money right here on this podcast. So head on over to the website. We've done a few little updates to it, so go check those out. It's helpmewithhipaa.com. Don't forget, you can always ask us a question right there on the page, and we might feature your question in a future podcast. Don't forget to share us. Share us on all your social media outlets. We will much appreciate it. So for Donna and myself, remember, the HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.